This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz, and I'm very excited to be speaking with Sydney Freeland about Echo. How are you, Sydney?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good. Can you tell me about the genesis of this project and your interest in it?
Yeah. Obviously the character of Echo first popped up in the Hawkeye series, or the MCU series, but the character existed in the Marvel comic books. I think 1998 was that first Daredevil run where the character was introduced, and so the character's been around for quite a while, and and she has a little bit of mythology built up around her. So, hello? No. She has a little bit of a mythology built around her, and so I think for the character existed, and the way I kind of found out about her was I think it was January 2020, roundabouts there. I know that because it was right before the pandemic, right? And I got an email from Bert and Bertie, who were a directing pair, and they co-directed on Hawkeye, and they sent me a message, and they said, "Do you know any deaf Indigenous actresses?" You know, and I was like, "Nope. Good luck with that." And as you know, it turns out they were trying to cast Maya Lopez for Hawkeye, and so that was really the first inkling I had that the Echo character is going to be introduced into the MCU, and then so fast forward about a year and a half, and then they announced that they're going to do an Echo series and everything, and so I kind of found out about it and had the opportunity to pitch, meet with Kevin on it, and I think our takes on everything really kind of lined up. I think for me that was most interesting was, like Hawkeye's a little bit lighter in tone, and rightly so. That's the series that they were making. But I think what was interesting to me about the character was that she was a villain. She was, she had this little bit darker backstory, and she's if you look at it on paper, she's a kingpin or she's this high-ranking lieutenant in Kingpin's sort of underground army. And to me, I was like, that's super interesting. Let's lean into that. And then in talking with Marvel, their response was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's lean into it. And we really wanted to try to create something that was a little bit grittier, a little bit more grounded, a little more visceral, violent. Because violence serves a purpose in our story. So yeah, and that was really the jumping off point for everything.
I think it's interesting too because it definitely is tied into Marvel. Everyone's excited, Kingpin return and all that, but it feels distinctly different from a lot of the other Marvel fare. And not just, I think, because of the violence, but also just, again, as you said, the focus on this character. Was there a sincere effort to make it feel like something that wasn't quite as tied into the MCU?
Yeah, I think it was, I think now in hindsight, it was sort of like it was something that was kind of there, this desire to make a departure from like the huge, like cosmic scale, the fate of the universe is at stake, and tell something that was a little more intimate in its sort of scope and scale and emotion. And it doesn't always have to be, the fate of the universe at stake. And so that was really kind of the jumping off point. I mean, I must say it was sort of, it was probably kind of, it felt kind of like subconscious. And now having the benefit of hindsight, it's like, oh yeah, that's totally what we were trying to do. But we always knew that she was going to return to Oklahoma, and her past would catch up with her. And then it was this thematically, it was a story of like family, and more specifically the definition of family. Like, right, she has at the beginning of the series, she has one definition of family, at the end she has another, and it was really about exploring that arc and challenging her presupposed definition of what family is.
Think that's also one of the benefits of the beast that is the MCU. That there are people who are just like, I have to watch everything, and so you're going to get stories like this that are really introductions to different cultures and different kinds of things because there are people who just say that it's Marvel. I have to do it. I don't care what it's about, and that's a nice way to discover this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I know that you've also directed a lot of series before, but a lot of them it's often just one or two episodes. What is it like to be able to sort of steer the ship and to do 4 out of 5 of the episodes?
Oh, it was great. It was great. I love working in TV. I love directing TV, and I love, you know, having the chance to do very diverse stuff, half-hour comedies, 1 hour genre, sci-fi, zombie, whatever, like it's like I love genre. I love working in different sort of areas, and episodic directing is different than like pilot directing or doing a series, and it's more, but also within that, like Marvel is also unique because it's it's not entirely a feature film, but it's also not entirely episodic TV. It's this sort of hybrid between the both. And so, and having done, you know, uh, three features, or sorry, two features before Echo, I think it was sort of like it for me, for myself. It was just taking the sum total of all those experiences into this, and seeing like, oh man, how can I use my experience on all those different shows to try to tell the best story possible, and you still get kicked in the teeth, but it was a fun ride.
What happened with that one episode that you didn't direct? Do you pay close attention and see what's going on there, or you sort of stick to
Yeah.
your lane of what you're doing?
No, I think it was really about Catriona McKenzie, who came in and did the middle of the series was, um it was really about just trying to give her permission to put her stamp on things, right? Like we had defined kind of a sandbox of what we were going for, like look wise, look, tone, and feel wise. And then when Catriona came on board, it was really like, okay, hey, you know, these are kind of the parameters, but then feel free to put your stamp on it. Feel free to put your individual sort of style on things, and she did that. And actually, I think 103 was her episode, and her and Magdalena Gorka, DP, they did a phenomenal job, and we always knew we were going to do this kind of black and white, sort of like old timey Western kind of feel. And in the conversation between Magdalene and Catriona, they kind of landed on this idea of infrared photography, and they talked about like, well, what if we could take the black and white sort of idea and aesthetic and kind of evolve it a little bit, and that landed into the sort of this, what we actually shot as infrared. It's black and white, but it's shot on an infrared camera, and it looks absolutely stunning and absolutely beautiful. And so really, it was all about just like, hey, do your thing.
Does working with a deaf actress impact your directing style? And did anything surprise you about that experience?
Oh, that's a great question. I, if I'm being honest, I thought it would. Here's what I say. I thought it would impact me far more than it actually did, right? Because at the end of the day, emotion is still emotion, and characters are still characters. And so for us, but film is a visual and audio medium. And so initially, as we were sort of like looking at things, we're saying like, can you successfully hold an audience's attention um, with just video, and just being able to see stuff being signed. And and it's interesting because in our camera test early on, like, my my cinematographer Kira Kelly and I, we tried all of these different like gimmicks, with hindsight, which were kind of gimmicks, and different techniques and everything that we were trying to um, we were trying to compensate for the lack of like audio that could be said through like dialogue. And in the end, we sort of, our visual process sort of naturally evolved back into something that was actually a little more traditional. And really, the net difference was just a wider frame on how we shot coverage, so we can include the ASL. And so in the end, it actually didn't affect a whole lot, But I think for myself and my crew and my interpreter and everything, learning ASL was a huge benefit for everybody. And also too, it's important that Alakwa feels safe and comfortable on set. And so I think us learning was a little bit of trying to take a step towards her, you know. And it was sort of that sort of the cumulative effect of all that stuff. I think actually ended up being like, oh yes, it's fine. You have at the end of the day, you have one extra person on set. That's an interpreter, but for the most part, the process is still the process.
This, of course, is billed as a limited series, but with Marvel, you never know what could happen. You know, characters
Mhm.
might come back years from now. Would you want to do more on this show or with this character? And if not, is there another aspect of the MCU that you'd like to direct in the future?
Oh hell yeah, 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 yeah. More Echo, more. Yeah, I think personally, I think my corner of the MCU is I always love the X-Men and the mutant side of things. And I know we don't specify whether Maya Lopez is a mutant or not, but if she was, I think there's a nice little marriage in there.
And at least there's no anticipation for the X-Men coming into the MCU. No one's excited about that, so certainly not
Yeah,
going to
no,
happen
yeah,
anytime
who
soon.
knows? Who knows? Yeah.
And I know you mentioned before, you've directed two features before this. Is that something that you have returned to based on the way you said it, or something you're planning to do in the future?
Yes, yeah, yeah. We actually we're just finishing post production on my third feature right now. We just screened the DCP yesterday.
Anything you can preview about it for us?
Of course, yeah. So the film's called Resball. It's a feature for Netflix. It's going to premiere. It's going to premiere in the fall. When and where is still TBD. But yeah, no, LeBron James is an executive producer, Spring Hill Company, and it's basically Hoosiers with Native Americans. Is the premise.
So how do you think that connects to your first two films, or does it really not?
I mean, you have indigenous characters. It's set. I got, like I mentioned that, Maya Lopez and Echo are, Maya's Choctaw, so we shot in Choctaw. Well, we didn't shoot on Choctaw Nation, but we shot um uh, Georgia for Oklahoma for Georgia, Georgia for Oklahoma. We shot Choctaw, and so that's a culture and language and nutrition that I didn't grow up with, and so my feature is set on the Navajo Reservation, which is where I'm from. So we got to it was very much a homecoming, and I got to go back to my res.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to hearing you as a director in contention for the upcoming X-Men movie. And in the meantime, seeing Resball and having everyone talk more about Echo.
Amazing, thank you.